The topic for the Recollection for the month of July 2024 is MSFS Apostolates, their foundational reason and the relevance for our times. The Congregation of the Missionaries of St. Francis de Sales has a long history of spreading and furthering the mission of Christ and His Church across the world. What has begun as a small community of men preaching parish missions in a small area in France has grown into a worldwide missionary congregation, engaged in a variety of ministries and missionary endeavors. For a religious congregation, the charism is its soul and the apostolates is the body. The charism propels and animates the community, while the apostolates give visibility to this inner dynamism and the spirit. What is charism in general? Charism having its roots in the Greek word charis, which simply means grace or a freely given favor. In the common or secular context, it refers to a rare personal quality attributed to leaders who arouse fervor and enthusiasm in their followers. In the 1 Corinthians chapter 12 verses 4 to 11, St. Paul speaks about various charisms. In the Christian or ecclesiastical context, charism refers to a spiritual gift or talent granted by God to an individual, not primarily for his or her own benefit, but for the benefit of the church and for His people. It is to live the gospel in a particular way and is always for the benefit of others. St. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, using a simile of the human body and its different parts to show that the different charisms are to be used to unite and work together for the benefit of the church. Now, what is MSFS charism? The Extraordinary General Chapter 2022 definitely speaks about the charism of the MSFS congregation as to continue the mission of Christ and His church by living the spirit and the spirituality of St. Francis de Sales in a religious community of missionaries as lived and envisioned by our founder. The MSFS charism, therefore, is tri-dimensional. It involves missionary commitment, which is a response to the call of Jesus to follow Him and build up His kingdom. It draws inspiration from the spirit and spirituality of St. Francis de Sales, which we commonly refer as Salesian spirituality, and it is lived and followed by the members in the context of a community. The first one, the missionary commitment. The mission of the church is to witness Jesus Christ, the light of the nations, to the entire world. Jesus, the first missionary, calls His disciples to continue His mission, and this mission continues till the last human lives on earth. Our Constitution explicitly states in it the following words: "It is His purpose that we proclaim His plan of salvation to all." The daring and passionate affirmation of the founder, "I want missions," is the inspiration behind our apostolic ventures as missionary initiatives. Ours is a call to missionaries by remaining constantly attuned to the promptings of the Holy Spirit, by imbibing the Spirit and the vision of both our patron and our founder. We are thus a missionary congregation, and our call is to participate in the mission mandate of Jesus. Every MSFS needs to constantly remind himself of this fact of his vocation as a missionary. The second, the spirit and the spirituality of St. Francis de Sales. St. Francis de Sales is at the heart and life of the spirituality of MSFS. We are named after him, and living the spirit and spirituality of St. Francis de Sales, which is popularly known as the Salesian spirituality, is the distinguishing mark of the Franciscan missionaries. Our Constitution states, our founder, Father Peter Mary Marmia, presents to us St. Francis de Sales as our patron and model. Therefore, our founder wants us to become more like Christ, the example of St. Francis de Sales, our patron. While giving approval, Bishop Joseph Ray of Annecy presented before Father Marmia and his companions how St. Francis de Sales had to be at the heart of our charism and day-to-day living, and he said, yours is a triple task: study St. Francis de Sales, imitate his virtues, and form your method of guiding people of his, full of gentleness to sinners. Third, community life. Community life is non-negotiable character and constituent of religious life. The religious are not simply pious and devout men or women engaged in some charitable works, but rather a community of brothers or sisters bound together by the evangelical counsels and fraternal charity. They share their life in common, and they are to be united in prayer and spirit, speaking of the important place that community life holds in the life of the religious. Perfecta te Caritatis states thus: common life fashioned on the model of the early church, where the body of believers was united in heart and soul, and given a new force by teaching of the gospel. The sacred liturgy, and especially the Eucharist, should continue to be lived in prayer and the communion of the same Spirit. Now, coming to the MSFS Apostolates, as I have already mentioned in the beginning, the charism is the soul of the congregation, which is expressed in love externally as apostolates. Our foundational apostolates are three: the apostolate of the renewal of the Christian life, the apostolate of the overseas and pioneering evangelization, and the apostolate of education and formation of the young. These apostolates are the ways and means through which we try to manifest our charism. Therefore, all these apostolates should have a missionary outlook, a Salesian touch, and a communitarian approach. In other words, our apostolates speak for who we are as missionaries of St. Francis de Sales or Franciscans. The first, the apostolate of the renewal of Christian life. The renewal and revival of Christian life was one of the priorities of Father Marmia and his companions, and that became one of our foundational apostolates. The solution he found for lack of faith in the people was preaching parish missions. It consisted of a week or a fortnight or a month-long intensive mission preaching, catechetical training, counseling, confessions, and family visits. This was intended to rekindle the faith in the people, along with the sustained catechetical exposure and practice of fervent Catholic devotions. And the model for MSFS is St. Francis de Sales, particularly his missionary work amidst the Calvinists at Chablais. Father Marmia's vision of renewing and reviving Christian life continues to guide the work of the MSFS missionaries all over the world. We have been at the service of the Church locally and globally employing creative and innovative ideas and methods to renew the faith of the people. Second, apostolate of overseas and pioneering evangelization. Father Mermier did not simply stop with the apostolate of renewal of Christian life or preaching parish missions. He offered himself and his congregation to the service of the church any other way, especially for the evangelization of the people through foreign missions. When our congregation was just a few years old, with just 11 members, Father Mermier wanted to go to missions abroad. Thus, the second apostolate of MSFS, the apostolate of overseas and pioneering evangelization, is very much linked with the foundation of our congregation. His personal desire was to go to Africa, but obedience to the Holy See made him to take up another mission territory. The Holy See assigned to MSFS congregation the vast Vilayet of Visakhapatnam in India for evangelization. This territory extended from the east coast of India to the central parts of India. The tiny congregation divested itself of the personal and financial resources at Annecy to attend to this vast mission of India. His dream of African mission is being fulfilled by the current missionaries of SFS. 3. The apostolate of education and formation, especially of the young. The third apostolate of the MSFS congregation is education and formation, especially of the young. Also had its origin at the time of Father Mermier. Due to the French Revolution and its after effects, the education and formation of the young was one of the areas mostly neglected and compromised, with religion and religious values were suppressed and education system proliferated, with extreme secular values and thoughts. The condition and standard of the Catholic schools and the colleges were poor, and the church leaders were concerned. This was equally important concern and priority of Father Mermier. He was a teacher at heart. As a young priest, he was a teacher and in charge of discipline at the school at Milan from 1816 to 1819. It was not any kind of education that he wanted, but education that instills in the students Christian values and principles. The bishops turned to Father Mermier and his young congregation to take charge of some of these schools and colleges to raise their standards and impart Catholic education, and Father Mermier responded positively. Relevance of Apostolates today. The renewal of Christian life. Many confreres are engaged in the ministry of catechetical education and animation, counseling, spiritual direction, preaching retreats and recollections, and confessions, all of which contribute to people's renewal of faith and life. Engaging in these ministries, these confreres become agents not only of spiritual renewal, but also of dissemination of Salesian spirituality. Pioneering foreign missions. The pages of the history of our congregation reveal that French-Salesian missionaries must be ready to move onto new worlds, new cultures, new languages. They are never settlers in their own land. We have extended our services to church in all continents, especially in Africa, East Asia, South America, and many other places. There is a need to keep this missionary zeal and fervor all along. Apostolate of education and formation, especially of the young. Education is the education of the heart, forming integrated and harmonious personalities guided by Salesian spirituality. It is a quest for excellence to fully realize the image of God in every student and build human relationships. The spiritual tenor of integrated spirituality and Salesian atmosphere must be predominantly seen in our educational systems. The formation of the seminarians is another major component of this apostolate. Young men who decide to follow Christ as religious and priests need to be well introduced and initiated into the charism and apostolates of our congregation. Recognizing our contribution in this area of seminary education and formation, the MSFS congregation has been asked to take up administration of major seminaries of the Decision Bishops of India. Conclusion. MSFS apostolates are external expressions of the essential charism of our congregation. The missionary commitment, the spirituality of SFS lived in communities remain as the bedrock of our apostolates, which are of tri-dimensional. The MSFS apostolates founded and initiated by the founder has its relevance even today. The great contribution of the MSFS making all over the world is a testimony to the significance of our apostolates. Let us continue to do our best and bear witness to Jesus all over the world. God bless every one of you.